Hi, this is Michael Waitze, and welcome back to Thailand GameChanger. We are focused on the driving forces behind the startup ecosystem in Thailand and Southeast Asia, produced by True Digital Park in conjunction with Michael Waitze Media. You're allowed to smile, by the way. We have the most informative and insightful conversations with startup founders, venture capitalists, ecosystem builders, and senior leaders from tech giants and the government, all recorded live at the Beach City studio at True Digital Park. I'm joined today by Max Bodhisuwan, the CEO at Eventpop. Thanks for coming in, Max. How are you doing today?
Hi, Mike. Thank you for having me today.
How you feeling?
I'm good.
Comfy?
Yeah, comfy.
Good. So for a little bit of context, can you give the audience a bit of your background and experiences kind of prior to starting Eventpop, yeah?
Okay, so I went to school I was doing IT in uni.
Okay.
And
Where did you go?
SIT, Thammasat.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So that was a good major to be in.
Yeah, for sure.
Because there was a lot of opportunities back then.
Right.
Especially, with websites and apps coming up.
Yeah.
And then after I graduated, I started a software house. So I was basically making programs for people basically, and that was good. And I got into events quite a bit back then. So
Right.
we were doing like toys and stuff for events. So activation, integration inside events.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then what was the inspiration for Eventpop? So you're going to all these events and you're just thinking, there's got to be a better way to do this kind of thing.
Yeah. So life was ups and downs. So
Software houses are hard.
Yeah.
They're hard.
So I was doing a lot of stuff back then, and one of the thing that interested me was hardware. So I was doing a makerspace.
Oh, wow.
So that was for about 1 or 2 years.
Okay.
Before Eventpop.
Right.
And I was doing a lot of workshops back then.
Okay.
And there was only like one platform to use for events, like small events back then.
Right.
So
what was it, if you don't mind?
it was Eventbrite.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was only Eventbrite. And it didn't really support the local, payment culture, everything that was local here in Thailand.
Well, it wasn't integrated at all, really.
Yeah, basically it was
So
like
it just died after you set it up, and then it just stopped, right? Because you couldn't connect it to anything.
yeah.
Right.
It was basically like a disintegrated system.
The worst kind.
Yeah,
Nothing
yeah.
against them or anything, but yeah, it's
Yeah,
the
nothing
worst kind
against
of
them,
thing to use,
but it wasn't really made for the Thai culture.
Right.
And there was a seminar culture happening back then, so a lot of people went to seminars.
Right.
So we saw an opportunity. So it was basically trying to solve my own problem back then. So I was trying to basically have a system that I can use for my workshops.
Right.
And then we started working with co-working spaces that needed the system, and that went from there. I think like 3 or 4 months down, we found an angel investor.
Did you really?
Yeah, like very fast. It was like, so I was moonlighting making Eventpop back then, and then we met an angel investor, Top Tokenoi.
Right.
So he was interested in startup back then.
Got it.
So he gave us some angel funding, and then we just got off the ground from there.
So were you looking for funding particularly, or were you just kind of trying to crank this out and somebody found out you were working on it?
No
and
way,
said-
man. I was basically lost.
Just like too busy.
I'm a developer, so I make software.
Right.
So I had nothing. I didn't know anything about fundraising back then. So there were a lot of people fundraising back then, and it was interesting. Like you get money to do your stuff, and you get a code. So when I met Top, he asked me if I needed some money. So that was like the starter question.
And were you surprised?
Yeah, I was.
You know what I mean? Because you're sitting there, as you said, you're a software developer, you're a coder, right?
Yeah,
And you're more concerned about building the software.
exactly. Yeah.
And then someone came over and said, "What are you working on?" You're like, "Oh, I'm working on this event thing on the side," kind of thing.
So it didn't go as nice as you try to put it, but it was more like we were doing workshops and we didn't make much money.
Right.
So he was asking basically like, what else did you do to make money, like to feed your team, right?
Right.
So I didn't have an answer for him back then, but we had this side project. It was like Eventpop, and we showed that to him, and he was like, "Oh, this one has a market."
What was it like back then, right? You said there were ups and downs. Were you stressed out?
Yeah, definitely. No way. Like I think like every entrepreneur goes through that stressed out process
Right.
along the way. So we didn't have much to make off the workshop. So we're doing projects, trying to like pay the bill every month.
Did you ever think of just giving up? You know what I mean? Like going to get a job at Microsoft or at Google or at Facebook or that kind of thing? Or were you just like, I'm not giving this thing up. I don't care if it kills me first. I'm going.
Well, yeah, I think like much of the time we were everyone is thinking that, like, going through that phase. But well, especially my parents, Asian people, like our parents are trying to convince us to get a stable job, things like that. So it's kind of like every week or 2 weeks, she'll have my mom will have that conversation with me.
Right.
Like, why don't you get a job? Things like that.
But how do you disintermediate that? Like, I understand what that fear is like.
Yeah.
What are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, your brother has, I don't know if you have a brother, but you know what I mean? Like, your cousin has a job.
Yeah.
What are you doing, kind of thing?
So I think, like, most of the time, like, you're trying to focus on what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And like, working out, are you achieving what you're trying to do?
Right.
So that kind of eats up all your time thinking about other stuff.
Yeah. It's really weird. I was thinking about this morning. It's almost like, you go over to your friend's pool.
Yeah.
Right. So you go swimming and you're just there to have fun.
Yeah.
And there's some bully there who just keeps dunking your head underwater. And the only thing you're trying to do when you come up for water is just breathe. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is that kind of what the feeling is like in a way?
Not really.
That's how I feel sometimes.
Not really. For me, like, I'm very focused on what I'm doing.
Right.
And like, I think, like, what you're trying to say is, like, how do you get by, like, with all that pressure, right? So I think, like, once you get to a point that you don't really mind that pressure, like, it can't, the pressure can't do anything to you, right?
It just normalizes.
Yeah, it's like you don't feel anything anymore with that pressure. You're just, like, very focused on the timeline, the deadline, when things need to be delivered, stuff like that.
Were there people and friends around you in your existing circle back then that you kind of had to not talk to anymore because they didn't get it?
I think, like, before that, like in uni, past uni, like that phase of life, there definitely are people, like, all your friends are getting job and you're, like, doing your own thing. Like, how many people in your company? Oh, we have 5,
including me.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, like, they're in a huge company, making salary, getting bonuses,
going on vacation.
Yeah, I try to avoid, like, Facebook and Instagram for a bit.
Right, because everyone's living their best life on Instagram, not their real life.
Oh well, yeah.
That's what it is. So let me ask you this: I know this is a few years ago, but after the seed round, which is like a mini oasis in the middle of a desert.
Yeah.
You actually went out and raised some real money.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So
what was that like? And so where did you reach the point where you said, okay, this thing's going to work, but now we just need some more fuel?
Okay. So that was quite fast, actually. So we got the angel funding. We didn't get the seed round back then.
Right.
So that was just to get off the ground.
Excuse the terminology.
Yeah. And then I think, like, after 6 months, we raised a seed round. So we worked with KK, and they were really, really fast.
What was that process like for you? Because at this point now you've realized I can raise money. There's an infrastructure out there to do that.
Yeah.
So what was that process like for you?
So I think I was lucky. So getting angel funding from like an established entrepreneur.
Right.
So he actually lent me some resources, especially, like, legal and finance to help with the seed round.
Right.
So they kind of guide us through the process of with the seed funding, and also KK actually helped us a lot with understanding, the terms and things like that.
Great.
So it's like when we work with Koichi from KK,
I know him.
He was basically trying to, like, do you understand the terms? Like, any part you don't understand,
please,
like,
I don't want you to sign this until you get it.
Yeah. So it was like the process was very, very smooth.
Right.
I think it only took us 1 month to get the money.
That's really fast to close.
It was really fast. Yeah, one and a half month.
What did it feel like when you finally closed that round? You're like, oh my God, now I have to really build something huge.
So it wasn't as intense as the angel funding.
Really?
Yeah, I actually threw up, like, when I got angel funding.
Did you really?
So like I never thought people would give me money, like, to do something, right? So the angel funding was really intense. So but the seed funding was more like we were getting money, like, for a purpose.
Right.
So we actually knew why we're getting the money.
Right.
Like, where we're going to use the money for, things like that.
Right. So at this point, you'd actually figured out, like, what the path was.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. It was interesting because earlier you said I felt lost.
Yeah, it is.
It's a weird feeling, right?
Yeah, you kind of, like, figure your way out,
Yeah. Either that or you die at some point. Right?
Exactly, yeah.
So have you raised any more money since that seed round?
So I think 2 years ago, we raised a Series A.
Okay.
So that was with InTouch and Beacon BC
Okay, great.
from K-Bank.
And how much was that?
That was around 2 million plus.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So let's talk a little. Look at you, like, yeah, there was. Let's talk a little bit about growth, right?
Yep.
How has the business changed, and how has sort of the event space changed, right? How has that whole industry changed since you guys started doing this?
So
And what's been your impact as well?
Yeah, so definitely. So when we started, the platform that was similar to us, so there weren't any when we
Right,
started.
right.
So I think there was another one, but like when we started, the industry was like flat. Like it was events were being promoted offline. No one was using social media to promote much of events online.
Right.
So we kind of like having us and our competitors in the market kind of helped grow that media scene where people are using a lot of online media to promote their event.
Okay.
I think like once going from there, a lot more people were more open to do events. So actually like in the past like year or two, people were coming to me and asking like how many like is there a lot more events happening right now than like year before?
Than used to be, right?
Yeah, than used to be, right?
Right.
So actually I think like the event scene is growing in different categories,
Right.
but like they're reaching more people. So people are using more online tools to promote their event, using online ticketing to solve the event registrations.
Okay, so that's pretty interesting. So it's more than just that people are doing more events. It's that more people are actually involved in those events because there's now a social media aspect to it.
Yeah, something like that.
So
And
do you provide those social media services as well? In other words, is that part of the business plan to say we're not just going to sell tickets online, we're going to do all the promotion around it as well?
yeah, so ticketing is part of the business, ticketing and registration.
Right.
But I think our service we try to cover the whole process of hosting an event.
Right.
So you have registration, you have invitation, you have CRMs, you have checking people in, and after the event, CRM also helps a lot with remarketing.
Right. So I was going to ask you about the follow-up and the data usage.
Yeah, exactly.
How long have you been doing this? Since 2000?
It's 4 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is your view on how you get to use all the data that you're gathering? Because for every event you have signups.
Right,
For
exactly.
every sign-up you probably have phone numbers and emails or some data.
Right.
Right, and some gender data, some location data. As you build that data over time, how valuable does that become to you in the remarketing, but also in the next event kind of thing at the margin?
Okay, so I think that's one of the key points in using events actually.
Right.
So for us, the data policy is quite clear. So the data that we acquire from registration,
Right.
We share it with the organizer.
Right.
The organizer are freely to use those data.
Got it.
For us, we use it for marketing intelligence. So trying to learn like what people are interested in and how the conversions are, things like that. And we do marketing with those data as well.
Right, but so can you actually be proactive now about creating events, if you understand what I mean? In other words, if you have 4 years of accumulated data,
Yeah.
it's all anonymized or whatever, and you can say, back in 2016, there were plenty of events about X.
Right.
You can see it trending into Y. Do you proactively go out and sell? Do you know what I mean?
Or like try to host our own events, right?
Not even host your own, but you could do that or co-host an event with someone who has sort of domain knowledge
Right.
and say, we know that people are interested in, pick a thing, dog walking, whatever it is.
Yeah, sure.
You should do an event on dog walking because 1,000 people will show up.
Right. So we actually work with a lot of partners on that. So trying to understand like what the audience is looking for, and we in the past we've done events with partners to help them out in terms of doing events, but we haven't got to that part where we're creating or co-creating events.
Right.
We're definitely looking into that in terms of 2020.
Really?
Yeah. So trying to. So the problem with us is the retention for events is very low.
What does that mean?
Like people don't look for events every day.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a big issue for us.
Yeah.
Right?
So how do you change that?
So most people attend events because they're impulse to it. They find it on social media, they find it on different platforms, and they're interested to know more about that event. Right?
Got it.
So there's no actual behavior that people like people actively looking for events to go to every week, unless you're like a entrepreneur,
Right, or a venture capitalist or something.
Yeah, something like that. So there are groups with high retention, and there are bigger groups with low retention.
Understood.
Yeah. So we're definitely looking into that part where we can co-host events with partners.
Right. So how do you make, and this just popped into my head, right? But how do you make that event scene more like a movie where people are sitting around going, hey, what do you want to do Thursday night? Let's go see a movie.
Yeah.
Or make it more like, hey, what do you want to do Friday night? Let's go to an event.
Regulars, right?
Right? Yeah. How do you fix that, or how do you change that?
Actually, at the moment, if clubs, nightclubs, different places,
Right.
they're already doing regular events.
Right.
So we're working with more of those type of businesses to help communicate what's happening with them. So
Right.
so that's actually supposed to be done this quarter. But,
Okay.
it's not done yet, so it's coming out. So with that tool, then it will be a lot easier for different places with regular events to use our platform.
And what is the sales cycle like? In other words, how long does it take you to convince somebody who's even running a regular event that they need more promo? And an easier way to get tickets and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. You mean the sales cycle for
Yeah.
us
For
or
you.
for the event organizer?
For you. The event obviously is short because you announce it in, December. It happens in the middle of January.
Yeah.
That's short.
Yeah.
But for you, how long does it take you to get someone to say, I think we need that service, as opposed to never mind, we'll do it ourselves on Facebook kind of thing?
Yeah, it's more or less like like how you would do like a drip campaign. So
Really?
so, yeah, it takes time. The sales cycle is very long, especially like if we know about an event this year, then we get the sales next year. So there are a lot of difficulties with larger events,
Right.
definitely. But yeah, I think like the strategy is to be out there so people know that they have this tool that they can use.
Can you just explain to me I'm really curious about this, right? Can you explain to me some of the logistics around, you get a deal, let's just say some big startup event,
Right.
2,000 people are going
Right.
to show up. Then what do you do? Like,
Okay.
I'm really curious. So you get it, you agree to it, you get some price, now you have a budget to go and do this.
Yeah.
Then what happens?
So we start with like what kind of event they're hosting,
Right.
the number of people,
Okay.
and then from there we work out what they need, basically. So because our offering is very very big, it's a big list. So we have event specialists. So our account team, our sales team, they can help. So the special thing with our account team and sales team is everyone's been in events before.
Right.
So they've
Right.
been in either they've been at a venue working as a sales, or they've
Right.
been at events organizers working as a event coordinator or
Okay.
event organizer. So basically with them they will provide a simplified solution that what you need for that event, and
Right.
then they will offer that to you. And then it kind of goes like okay, it's over the budget, so we cut this,
Right.
and we try to get them a simplified solution.
So what's the biggest event you've done?
So I think like the biggest we've done is S2O. So we've been doing that for 3 years.
What's S2O?
S2O is a music festival during Songkran. You know Songkran, right?
Of course.
Yep. So during April, where Thailand has a big water fight.
Right.
Yeah. So during that time, there's a festival.
Where is it?
It's hosted around RCA area.
Okay.
Yeah. So the festival, basically, it's a big party.
How many people come, do you think?
They do an average around like 80, I think, like around that
80,000
80,000
people.
like every year.
That's huge.
So I'm not sure about the numbers.
Right.
But yeah, they do a lot, like tens of thousands of people coming.
Wow.
And they actually use the whole full spectrum of what we have.
They're probably going to have to. There are 80,000 people there.
Yeah,
There's a lot to organize, right?
So we learn a lot actually from working with Esto, and they provided a lot of guidance
Right.
in terms of like what needs improvement, and basically what comes out of that is a perfect system for handling like tens of thousands of people.
Sure. Once you can handle an event with 80,000 people, then
Right.
dialing it back to 2,000 people feels easier. Yeah. Not easy. It's never easy.
Definitely.
Okay. I want to go a little bit higher level right now. You've been doing this for a while now. Every country has its own idiosyncrasies.
Yeah.
Right. What do you think are some of the biggest challenges of being an entrepreneur are in Thailand?
I think like being an entrepreneur in Thailand, I think it's everywhere. So like it's very difficult for Thai entrepreneurs to understand like what they're offering and like what the market wants, we kind of don't have that, all that numbers and data, like already available for us.
Right.
Like in other countries, like
Sure. If
you
I
can
want to go
buy
do research on something, you can get research on almost any topic in Europe and the United States.
Exactly. Yeah.
Really easily, actually. Someone's already done it.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And in other countries, you can just buy it. Right.
Right. Yep.
You get it in PDF format, and then you just go through the data.
Right. Just figure it out. Do some analysis and figure it out.
I think like for Thailand, it's either like a hit and miss.
Right.
So like we have to try A, then try B. Everything is trial and error.
Right.
And that kind of slows down the whole, process.
So if you raise, I want to back up on this again. If you raise money from KK, that should mean that the invested entity was in Singapore.
Exactly. Yes.
Right. So you have a Singapore parent company, a Thai subsidiary.
Yep.
And is that a BOI as well?
Yep.
It was from the start. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. But so isn't that part of the challenge as well? In other words, you can't take an investment directly into your Thai company. You could from a Thai investor.
Right.
But an international investor is not going to do that.
I think like it's changing now. So
That's
so
what I
a
wanna know.
lot like some of the laws are changing, especially with the ESOP.
And
law.
that changed really recently as well.
Yeah, it's not happening yet, but soon. But basically, with international investors back like 4 or 5 years ago, it was very, very different.
Almost impossible, right? Because you couldn't create options, you couldn't create employee stock ownership programs.
Exactly.
All this stuff was not possible. That's changing.
Yeah. So so like I said, we were lucky. So we had a lot of legal and finance helps back then. So it was really easy to set up that Singapore company and then set up the holding there.
Do you think your language skills give you an edge?
Yeah. So I kind of grew up in Australia. So I've lost my Australian accent.
I was going to say.
Yeah, but
He's from Australia, but
I still have a tiny bit. Yeah.
I can't hear it at all, actually. I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah, so when I came back, right? So this is a bit weird, but when I came back, like all the Thai people were very confused with my accent.
For sure.
Like they, hardly like Thai people don't go to Australia much.
Yeah,
and like everyone's confused with like what accent do you have?
Right,
like,
where are you
it's
from?
really strange. So I kind of learned trying to change the accent like by watching TV and things like that.
Right. So I went through the same thing actually when I was much younger. My family's from Boston.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever been to Boston.
No.
But Boston has a very distinctive accent.
Okay.
You can't hear it in my voice.
No.
Because I practiced it away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I understand the concept. When I moved from Boston to New Jersey, people were like, huh? Like, what are you talking about? Which part of Mars are you from? Kind of thing. So I know that. I know that feeling. It's a little different Aussie to Thai.
Yeah.
But still, I get it. I get it.
So the language skill definitely gives you an edge.
Yeah, I think so.
We're expanding outside the country. So with that case, it's very, very, it's a lot more easier.
Do you find it a little, what's the right word, that it disarms other people as well? In other words, when they see you and they see your name, they think, oh God, how can I communicate with this guy? When you sit down in the meeting and go, hey, it's nice to meet you, my name's Max, do they kind of go, oh God, that's so much easier than I thought? Do you think that gives you an edge as well?
I get that sometime, yeah.
Don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool, right?
Yeah.
I very strongly believe that language is power.
Well, usually the case is like when you email, right? So people read your email and they're okay. I'm gonna meet this guy, basically.
Yeah, but I've had this before in reverse, right? So I speak Japanese.
Okay.
Right. It doesn't look like it the same way. Maybe it doesn't look like you speak English, right?
Yeah.
And I've emailed some Japanese people, and I get a perfectly written English email back, and I'm like, okay, this is gonna be easier. And I get there, and they're like, none of you did a call. I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Who wrote that mail?
Yeah.
Your cousin wrote that mail?
I think maybe they used like some tools.
Maybe probably Google Translate.
Yeah.
So you've been at this for a while now. What do you think has changed just in the whole startup ecosystem since you started doing this? What have you seen?
I think definitely we've got more and more, way more startups.
Yeah.
Way more people understanding what the word startup means.
Right.
I think that's changed. Also, the startup is kind of like a culture, right?
Absolutely.
So a lot of companies, especially big corporates, they're implementing that fast moving culture already.
Right.
So it's gotten a bit more scarier. Where like in the past, corporates are very slow.
Right. You're like, I can out execute those guys.
Exactly. And now they're they're big, they're resourceful, and they're fast.
Yeah.
So things are getting a bit more scarier back now, but I think like in terms of the overall scene and the overall like startup scene
Right.
in Thailand, it's definitely getting a lot more advanced than what we had like 2 or 3 years ago, where everyone's trying to do e-commerce,
Right.
trying to do things around e-commerce, things like that.
So back when you first started, you mentioned kind of in passing that every 2 weeks, which is probably a bit of an exaggeration, but often enough, your mom would be like, "When are you going to go get a job?"
Yeah.
So how about today? So back then, when somebody asked her like, "Hey, what is Max doing?" Would she be like, "Oh, yeah, he's working."
Yeah, she's not sure.
Right, not sure what to say.
Yeah.
What does she say now?
So I think like she's I think like she understands more what we're doing.
Yeah.
I think that's important. Also like so my mom is actually a lecturer. So my dad as well.
Where do they lecture?
My dad's at Kasetsat University. He's retiring next year.
Congratulations.
So that's good for him. My mom is at another place.
Okay.
But when we do events for the uni,
Right.
like they're very proud.
I was
They're
gonna
like,
say
yeah.
now they're beamingly proud, right?
Right, exactly.
Good for you.
So like they're a lot more proud of what their son have been accomplishing during the past years. But I think like the overall like stability of when your business grow, they kind of tend to feel that
Right.
you're more stable.
Right. They can see it in you, right? They can feel it.
Exactly,
Some
yes.
stress is gone. Some new stresses arrive,
Yep.
but they're different stresses.
Yes.
It's not like I'm going to die. It's like, how can I grow this faster? Kind of
Yeah,
thing,
she's
which
more
is-
worried about the cats at home
Right.
than
About
me
you.
right now.
And that's a high quality problem for you.
Yeah, that is, yeah.
So the last thing I'll ask you is, now that you've been involved in this for a long time, you've had those ups and downs, you've been funded, which is nice, but it also puts some pressure on you. What do you think is going to change the game for startups in Thailand going forward?
I think like once we actually started executing business outside of the country,
Got it.
I think that will definitely change the game. Thailand's a hub. Like a lot of startups are coming into Thailand to reach our market.
Right.
But I think like if we win in the country, it's still good. But if we can win like regionally or even globally, I think that would be a lot more interesting.
Do you feel like the competition outside of Thailand is more intense than the competition inside?
I think like in terms of funding, definitely.
Yeah.
So like outside Thailand, the funding that's being raised or been given to startup is a lot more.
Right.
But that also comes with, because the different startups that are getting funding are actually in a
Sure.
market that's really huge.
Sure.
Events is a big market for some people,
Yeah.
but it can look very small for some people. So it depends on how you look at it, right?
Right.
So the MICE industry is different.
Right.
So MICE is meeting scientific convention.
I know.
Yeah. So
They should
that-
change the name of that, by the way.
Yeah, they did. They should. It's
Mice.
yeah, gets people really confused.
Right.
But we have like 150 billion baht industry
Right. It's
in
huge.
terms of MICE. So that's
Particularly
huge.
here, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're growing. Like we've grown from 80 billion in the past, like 3 years. So that's a leapfrog for a whole industry.
Right.
And in terms of like how you view the industry,
Right.
it's a really big industry.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
I think like in terms of like for Thai startups, if they're looking outside of the country,
Right.
like I still believe that you got to win in the country first
Okay.
before you actually go out.
Right.
But it doesn't mean you can't do many things at the same time. Right?
Yeah, I agree with you.
Especially with software and how payment is really easy now.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there are two schools of thought on this, right? They're both obvious. One is just dominate in your local market, whatever it is. Don't let
Right,
anybody else
exactly.
in and just kill everybody off.
Right.
The next one is get your tentacles in as many other markets as you possibly can.
Right.
In a way, it makes you look bigger than you really are. There are a bunch of reasons to do both.
Right.
I think both work. It's just what you're comfortable with.
Right. Exactly. I think like at the same time, I think it's just some prehistoric thing that we view markets by region.
Yeah, it's weird. I
Yeah.
love the term prehistoric, right?
Yeah.
So in my mind, I talk about the evolution of the state,
Right.
why there are borders where they are,
Right.
and then why it matters. In other words, if you literally just cross the river, you're in Laos.
Exactly.
What's the difference?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? What's the
Right.
difference? I know there are differences, but why? And why should it matter from a business perspective? Maybe there are nuanced differences in the local market, but there's no reason why you can't do it there.
Exactly. I think like part of Asia is that like it's composed of many countries.
Yeah,
So things are different in each country.
sure.
But like YouTube and internet has really helped us to understand different culture.
It's kind of consolidated everything.
Exactly,
down in a
right.
way,
So like, like it's kind of prehistoric why we view like markets, right?
Yeah.
As region,
Right.
and at the same time, with software, like you can launch a cloud in China right now,
Absolutely.
and that's in like 5 minutes, right?
Yeah, and look, Thailand is actually one of the countries in Southeast Asia that's just like one contiguous piece of land
Right,
with a bunch
right.
of smaller islands, but most of the population actually lives on that piece of land.
Yeah,
Whereas in Indonesia,
right.
the population is
right.
spread out among I don't know how many islands there are, but thousands.
Yeah, but the market is huge.
It's huge though, right?
Yeah.
So they don't look at Bali any different than they look at Java,
Exactly.
but it's an
yes.
island. It's very different. Like
Yes.
Bali has its own distinct culture.
Yes.
So I agree with you in a way. So my methodology is I just want to be everywhere.
Right. Exactly.
I know you have yours, but I just think, and both work, yeah?
Right.
Anyway, look, this has been fascinating for me. I really appreciate your time. I don't want to take up too much more of it. I just want to thank you, Max Bodhisuwan, CEO at Eventpop, for coming in and doing this.
Thank you, Mike.
Awesome.
Thank you.